Have you ever wondered why Allah makes you wait, even when your heart is tired of praying? What if the delay you call pain is actually Allah's mercy, quietly protecting you from a future you cannot yet see? There are moments in life when waiting becomes heavier than the hardship itself, not because the pain is unbearable, but because the silence feels endless. The nights grow longer, the prayers feel repetitive, and the heart quietly asks a question it never says aloud. Why is Allah not answering me? This story begins in such a moment, a season where effort had been made, hands had been raised, and hope had been stretched thin. Every path seemed blocked. Every door knocked upon remained closed. What once felt like trust slowly turned into confusion, and patience began to feel like abandonment. The man at the center of this story was not faithless. He prayed. He worked honestly. He avoided what was forbidden and trusted that Allah sees all things. Yet despite doing what he believed was right, life refused to move forward. Opportunities slipped away. Plans collapsed without warning. And each delay carved a deeper question into his heart. Was this a punishment? Was this rejection? Or was this simply destiny unfolding in a way he could not understand? In the quiet corners of his life, before dawn prayers in empty rooms, and during long walks where thoughts grow loud, his heart wrestled with itself. One part wanted to trust Allah completely. Another part feared that perhaps his duas were falling unheard. But what he did not yet realize was this. Allah was not delaying his answer out of neglect. Allah was delaying it out of protection. Every pause carried wisdom. Every closed door was shielding him from harm he could not yet see. And slowly, through patience, reflection, and unseen mercy, the meaning of that delay would begin to reveal itself. The days began to move slowly, as though time itself had decided to test his patience. Each morning looked the same, yet each carried a different weight. He would wake before sunrise, sit quietly in the dim light of a small room, and let his thoughts settle before prayer. His hands rose in dua, but his heart felt heavier than before. Not empty, just tired. He lived a simple life, one shaped by effort and restraint. His work was honest, his intentions clear. He avoided shortcuts, even when they promised quick relief. While others around him found success through questionable means, he chose patience, believing that Rizq written by Allah would never miss him. Still, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and nothing changed. The environment around him reflected his inner state. The streets he walked daily felt longer. The familiar paths seemed silent, as if even they were waiting with him. In the workplace, he watched opportunities pass from one person to another. Doors opened for others and closed quietly before him. No announcement, no explanation, just delay after delay. At first, he reassured himself. Allah knows best, he whispered internally. Perhaps the time is not right. He reminded himself of stories he had heard. Stories of patience rewarded and hardship transformed. But as the delays stretched on, reassurance slowly turned into doubt. No doubt in Allah, but doubt in himself. He began to ask questions he never dared to voice. Had he misunderstood his purpose? Was he asking for something that was not meant for him? Or was there something unseen holding him back? Each unanswered prayer felt like a gentle but firm pause, and his heart struggled to understand why. At night, when the world fell quiet, the questions grew louder. He would replay moments from his past, searching for mistakes. Small regrets became heavy burdens. Missed chances, wrong timing, words left unsaid. He wondered if perhaps his delay was the result of something he had failed to do. Yet, even in this confusion, he never stopped turning to Allah. His prayers did not disappear. They changed. They became quieter, more personal, less demanding. He stopped asking when and started asking why, not in rebellion, but in longing for understanding. He observed others closely now. Some achieved what he desired without effort. Others found relief after a brief struggle. He did not envy them, but he could not ignore the contrast. Their lives moved forward. He remained still, and in that stillness, patience became his greatest test. There were moments when he almost gave up hope, not entirely, but just enough to feel lost. He considered altering his path, compromising his values, choosing ease over principle. The thought came and went like a whisper testing his resolve. Each time, he pulled back, reminding himself that Allah sees even the choices we almost make. One afternoon, after another disappointment, he sat alone and reflected deeply. He realized that what hurt most was not the delay itself, but the uncertainty. Humans fear the unknown more than hardship. If he knew the delay had a purpose, he could endure it. If he knew relief would come, he could wait. But waiting without clarity tested his trust in ways comfort never could. Still, something within him refused to break. He remembered verses he had once read, reminders that Allah's timing is perfect, even when it feels painfully slow. He recalled how prophets and righteous people before him had waited far longer, endured far more, and yet remained steadfast. Compared to them, his struggle felt small, but no less real. Gradually, his patience took a different shape. It was no longer fueled by hope alone, but by surrender. He began to accept that perhaps the delay was not about what he wanted, but about who he was becoming. Each unanswered prayer was shaping his heart, teaching him reliance beyond outcomes. He noticed subtle changes within himself. He listened more, judged less. He grew gentler with his expectations. His prayers included gratitude even in hardship, not forced gratitude. Sincere acknowledgement that Allah had kept him away from despair, even when answers were delayed. And yet, the test was not over. Just when he thought he had learned to wait, life tested him again. Another opportunity appeared, promising, convincing, seemingly perfect. This time, everything aligned. People encouraged him. Circumstances favored him. It felt like the long-awaited answer had finally arrived. His heart raced with cautious hope. Was this it? Was this the moment Allah had been preparing him for? But just as quickly as it appeared, the opportunity collapsed. Unexpectedly, completely, leaving behind silence once more. That moment shook him deeply. It was then that his confusion reached its peak. Not anger, not rebellion, just exhaustion. He felt as though he had reached the edge of his patience, unsure how much more waiting he could endure. His heart whispered a quiet plea, not for success, not for ease, but for clarity. And it was at this lowest point, when his expectations finally fell away, that the wisdom behind the delay began to move closer, unseen, yet already written. The collapse of that final opportunity did something profound within him. It did not break his faith. It stripped it bare. For the first time, he stopped searching for answers and outcomes. He stopped measuring Allah's mercy by visible results. And in that surrender, something shifted. That night, he did not ask for relief. He did not ask for the doors to open. He sat quietly, his heart exhausted, and placed his trust where it had always belonged. Not in timing, not in effort, but in Allah alone. The weight he carried for so long finally loosened, not because the situation changed, but because his reliance did. He realized then that every delay had been steering him away from something unseen. Each opportunity that failed had removed him from a path that looked promising on the surface, but carried harm beneath it. What felt like rejection was, in truth, redirection. Allah had not been withholding. Allah had been guarding. Slowly, moments from the past began to align in his understanding. He remembered situations he once wished had worked out, now clearly recognizing the consequences he had been spared from. Relationships that would have drained his faith. Decisions that would have compromised his values. Success that would have distracted him from remembrance. The clarity did not come like a sudden miracle. It came gently, like dawn after a long night. A realization settled into his heart. If Allah had given me what I wanted earlier, I would not be who I am today. This understanding tested him again, but differently. Now, the test was not patience. It was trust without reassurance. Would he continue to believe, even if nothing changed tomorrow? Days passed quietly. His life remained simple. The circumstances did not immediately improve, yet his heart was no longer restless. The desperation that once filled his prayers was replaced with calm certainty. He continued to work honestly, live carefully, and pray consistently, not because he expected immediate reward, but because obedience itself became enough. Then, without warning or anticipation, Allah's wisdom revealed itself through contrast. He learned that the opportunity he once mourned had led others into difficulty. People who had taken that same path faced losses he could not have endured. Compromises had been demanded, ethics tested, faith strained. The thing he thought would save him had nearly destroyed others. In that moment, the protection became undeniable. Allah had delayed him not to deprive him, but to preserve him. Shortly after, a new door opened, quietly, without drama. It did not look impressive at first. No one celebrated it. No one envied it. Yet it carried something different. Peace, stability, barakah. It aligned with his values rather than challenging them. This time, his heart did not rush ahead. He moved forward with humility, aware that what truly mattered was not the opportunity itself, but the hand that opened it. He now understood that rizq is not measured only by wealth or status, but by peace of heart, protection of faith, and closeness to Allah. The delay had trained him. It had taught him restraint. It had reshaped his understanding of success. And most importantly, it had strengthened his tawakkul, reliance not tied to outcomes, but anchored in certainty that Allah's plan never arrives late. Looking back, he saw how Allah had removed impatience from his heart before granting relief, how he had taught surrender before granting ease. The delay was not a pause in plan, it was a plan. And in that realization, gratitude replaced confusion. He no longer asked why Allah made him wait. Instead, he thanked Allah for not answering too soon, because if Allah had responded according to his urgency, he would have lost far more than time. He would have lost protection. He would have lost growth. He would have lost a deeper understanding of what it means to trust the one who sees what we cannot. The climax of his journey was not success. It was certainty that Allah's delays are deliberate, certainty that divine timing is precise, certainty that every unanswered prayer is still heard. And in that certainty, his heart finally rested. With time, the weight that once pressed heavily upon his chest softened into something lighter. Life did not suddenly become perfect, but it became meaningful. The urgency that once ruled his thoughts faded, replaced by a steady calm. He learned to walk through his days without constantly asking what would happen next. What changed most was not his circumstances, but his sight. He began to notice Allah's mercy in places he had once overlooked, in the simplicity of his routine, in the quiet consistency of provision, in the fact that his heart remained firm, while others around him felt restless despite having more. He realized that being protected is often more valuable than being fulfilled. The delays that once felt cruel now appeared gentle. They had kept him grounded. They had preserved his character. They had saved him from choices that would have slowly pulled him away from remembrance. Allah had not only guarded his future, he had safeguarded his faith. He reflected on how easily impatience could have led him astray. Had his desires been fulfilled earlier, he might have mistaken success for security and ease for blessing. The waiting had taught him discernment. It had taught him to differentiate between what shines and what sustains. Even his prayers felt different now. They were no longer driven by desperation, but by presence. He asked Allah not only for outcomes, but for alignment with divine wisdom, with what would benefit him in both worlds. He understood that Allah answers in forms we may not recognize immediately, but always with precision. Occasionally, memories of his earlier struggles surfaced. But instead of pain, they brought humility. He saw himself as someone who had been gently carried through confusion rather than abandoned within it. The protection had been quiet, patient, and perfectly timed. He also noticed something else: how easily people measure success by visible milestones, promotions, possessions, recognition. Yet Allah had given him something far more enduring: contentment, a heart no longer shaken by delay, a trust no longer dependent on speed. The resolution of his journey was not marked by celebration or applause. It arrived quietly, like peace settling into a room after chaos leaves. He no longer feared waiting, because he understood what waiting meant. Waiting was not emptiness. Waiting was preparation. Waiting was mercy disguised as silence. And so, when new delays appeared, as they always do in life, he met them differently, with patience instead of panic, with trust instead of doubt, with the certainty that Allah, in his perfect wisdom, never delays without purpose. The chapter of confusion had closed, not because answers were loud, but because his heart had learned to listen. This story leaves us with a truth that is easy to forget when waiting becomes painful. Allah never delays without wisdom. What we call postponement is often protection. What we interpret as silence is often mercy working quietly beyond our sight. We see only what is in front of us. Allah sees what lies ahead. He knows which paths carry harm, which blessings will arrive too early, and which desires could weaken our faith if granted before we are ready. When Allah withholds, it is not because we are unworthy. It is because He is careful with us. Patience is not passive. It is active trust. It is choosing to believe that Allah's plan is better than our urgency. Tawakkul is not the absence of effort, but the peace that follows sincere effort placed in Allah's hands. So when your du'as feel unanswered, remember this story. Remember that Allah may be saving you from a future you would not survive, guiding you toward a timing that will strengthen you rather than break you. Palms up together, dua asterisk. Ya Allah, grant us hearts that trust you even when we do not understand your timing. Protect us from what we desire, but is not good for us. Give us patience that does not complain, faith that does not weaken, and certainty that your plan is always filled with mercy. Ameen. If this reminder touched your heart, may Allah replace your waiting with peace and your patience with reward.